Hi, welcome to Food for Thought. This is Colleen Patrick-Goudreau. I hope you're doing well. Today's episode is on world vegan travel. It's a special episode. I don't normally do interviews. I don't normally have interviews on the podcast. I had a couple over the years, over 15 years, but I recorded a video with my dear friend, Bridie Reed, and well, long story short, I was looking forward to repurposing the video audio into a podcast for you. I haven't been able to release the video because my computer conked out and it has been in the repair shop for weeks. And so I cannot get my hands on that video, which is really frustrating. But I was able to get my hands on the audio because I had downloaded it earlier. So all that's to say, I thought this was a really perfect, topical, timely episode or conversation to share with you. So I'm breaking my own rules and including this conversation. And perhaps you're interested in the video. And as soon as I can get that up, I will do so. But there's nothing we talked about that made it visual. So I just think you'll enjoy this conversation. So I thought I would just use this as an opportunity to give you a little a backstory and a couple announcements since I've been rolling these episodes out every week. Thank you for all of your support and for listening and for subscribing. As you know, this is a 100% listener supported podcast and I'm cranking them out once a week and your feedback has just been super positive and I appreciate it. One of the announcements I want to make is about a new app called Clubhouse. I am not someone who gets excited about apps, except those that I find to be the most effective and powerful in terms of connecting us with each other and connecting our message with people who want to hear it and people who didn't know they want to hear it, but wind up hearing it anyway. So perhaps you've heard of Clubhouse. I heard about it for a while before I really understood what it was. And people were saying, you got to get on Clubhouse. You got to get on Clubhouse. And they were sending me invitations. And I was like, what are you talking about? I don't even know what this thing is. And then I got on Clubhouse. And it's amazing. And I am probably still in the honeymoon phase, but truly, folks, this is powerful stuff. So it's a newish app that's based solely on rooms with 2 or more speakers. It's all audio based. And as a lover of audio, evidenced by 15 years of podcasting, I'm blown away by what I have seen and experienced. The conversations, the connections, the community, the compassion I have witnessed and been part of have been absolutely incredible. Whereas all other forms of social media, I think, are really personal media. They're one-way media rather than truly social media in the sense that there's one person talking to their audience, like me talking to you right now, right? Via posts, via stories, via videos, memes, or a podcast. What Clubhouse is, well, think of it as a live podcast. It's two-way or multi-way. It's a multi-way conversation between me, right, or you, and everyone who joins the room. And the communication, the conversations, the collaborations that I've seen take place in the short time I've been on it have just been really powerful. And I just wanted to encourage you to check it out. Now, I will say this with a caveat. Like a lot of tech companies rolling out a new technology, they have limited the access to Clubhouse, to the Clubhouse app, to first, people who have an iPhone. So this is not my fault. I did not invent this, so don't blame me. But I'm still going to say this to you because millions of people still have an iPhone. But they will be releasing it. 100%, they're going to be releasing it to all phone users. This is just them working out the kinks and, kind of releasing it in a limited way. The limited aspect is also in that it's invitation only, which sounds exclusive, but it's really like, as a user on Clubhouse, I have several invitations I can give away. Now they're limited, but as soon as I give them away and then people join based on my invitation, I get more invitations. That's not to say that I can give you, all of my listeners, an invitation. I don't have that many. But the point is, ask around, ask friends, ask people on social media that say that you're very interested, because, you can waste an invitation. It's weird. Like I invited people when I didn't know what I was doing who never joined, and I can't take back those invitations. So if you're really interested, ask around, ask folks, if they have an invitation they can give you, and get on this app. I am hosting rooms, which means I'm hosting conversations and discussions and presentations and Q&As every single day, every day. sometimes more than once a day. I'm joining rooms that are being hosted by others every day. About living compassionately and healthfully, topics on food, on cooking, on animals, on advocacy, on communication, on language, on travel, overall being a joyful vegan in a non-vegan world. So I hope to see you over at Clubhouse. It is a game changer. Number 2, I hope you enjoy this conversation with Bridie. Bridie and Seb, her partner, started World Vegan Travel after we did trips together and they realized they could do better than anything we'd done together with others. And they started World Vegan Travel, and that's who we organize our incredible vegan trips around the world with. Now, obviously, COVID ruined that for us in 2020, ruined a lot for a lot of people. But 2021 is looking very promising because of the slow but steady rollout of the vaccinations. Just today, the CDC announced that people who have been vaccinated can gather in small groups inside without a mask. And that makes me teary just thinking about being with people we love in an indoor space, just just being able to touch one another and hug one another and see one another in a way we haven't in a year. So, I mean, that's just the very beginning. It's the tip of the iceberg of the hope of our new normal post-COVID, post-lockdown, I should say, because I think the post-COVID is going to take a couple years to really shake out, but there will be a new life after this, but one that will feel really good. So we feel very confident that by the end of summer, early fall, we'll be able to travel again without the fear of coronavirus. So we have our incredible fairy tale romantic September trip to the Dordogne region in France. This is the area in France where the French go to vacation because they know the secret of how beautiful this area is. And somehow tourists haven't figured it out yet. So you might want to figure this out before the tourists figure it out. So that's in September. And then in October, we have Tuscany. Botswana is already a go for December, but Dordogne and Tuscany have space. The only problem is while I think we'll all feel confident, or many of us will feel confident and desperate to travel by September, October, we need to know by April. We need to tell our hotels and our vendors and our partners over in France and Italy by April. They need to know if we're a go, because if we're not a go, they will open it up to other travelers by April. So at this point, while, like I said, I think that many of us will feel really confident and excited to travel in September, October, we need to commit by April. And how do you feel about that? If it helps, securing your spot for a CPG trip means submitting a deposit, which you get back 100%. If the trip doesn't sell, if we don't go, or, well, those are the two things. If the trip doesn't go ahead, you get your deposit back, 100% of your deposit back. If it's a go, then your deposit obviously goes toward the cost of the trip and you're in, and yay. If it also helps, we have our own villas in each of the places in Dordogne and in Tuscany. So the only person we're going to be with the majority of time in our travels are each other. Although, again, I think we're going to all feel much better. That's not to say that by September, October, I want to make it clear that we're all going to be maskless and hugging, and I think we'll all be kind of dipping our toes in slowly, but we will be able to, we'll be with each other, is my point. And you can go over to cpgtrips.com and you can see all of the details of the trips, and you can see many, many answers to questions people have about travel in general, vegan travel in particular, and of course, COVID travel in particular. If you don't see any of your questions there, don't hesitate to reach out to Bridie and Seb on the website there at cpgtrips.com. So if you are as excited as we are, then secure your spot. If not, there is always 2022. Yes, we're going to keep doing these trips. If you're interested in other trips, we've got slotted for 2022. We're talking all the time about what makes sense and what we think people are going to be interested in. We've got waiting lists already for South Vietnam and Cambodia, for Japan, for Northern Italy. We're talking about another Rwanda trip. So if there are trips that you see over on the website, or trips that you think, well, you've done Rwanda in the past, are you doing Rwanda again, or Botswana, or Vietnam, or Alsace, whatever, just ask and just send an email. But I do think the news is that post-COVID travel is going to boom for reasons I don't need to explain. So the trips are first come, first serve. So I would really recommend, if you're interested at all, getting on there, even if it's for the waiting list. And if you feel comfortable, if you're excited, if you'd like to join us in September or October for France or Italy, we will take obviously all of the right actions to make you feel comfortable and confident, and mostly just spoiled because this is what these trips are about. So once you've headed over to cpgtrips.com, come back here, take a listen to my chat with Bridie about our favorite places, our favorite food adventures, our funny stories, and just overall about how abundant and joyful it is to travel when compassion is your compass. Finally, I'm still teaching online cooking classes, so they're every other week now. We've got Thai cuisine coming up, cooking with herbs and spices from around the world coming up, and breakfast and brunch in bed. Until then, this is Colleen Patrick-Goudreau for The Animals. Enjoy and stay in touch. Thanks for listening. Hey, Bridie, how are you?
I'm fine. I'm really well. How are you doing?
I'm good. So, hi, everybody. Colleen Patrick-Goudreau here. I'm here with Bridie, and we are going to answer questions you submitted about travel, about vegan travel, about CPG vegan trips. One of the questions is, why are they called CPG vegan trips? We'll answer all of your questions. And Bridie and I have known each other a long time. One of the questions was, and maybe we should just jump right into that. One of the questions was, how did you and Bridie meet? And Bridie, we can both answer all questions. We can each answer one question. We can blah, 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 blah. But why don't you answer and start off with how we met?
Sure. Okay, so this is no secret, but your work was absolutely the trigger for me to decide to become vegan. A long time ago, 2009, I think it was. And this was through your podcast. I absolutely consumed your podcast constantly for a year and a half, 2 years perhaps, and I really appreciated all of the work that you did. So when you put a call out for some help with some little sort of admin tasks or some research or something like that, I put my hand up, and you very kindly wanted to work with me. And I was answering some of your emails for a couple of years, I think. And then when Seb and I were traveling through California a few years ago now, we met up with you, and you took us out to dinner, and we got on like a house on fire. We actually then decided to go on a trip to Italy with a trip that you were hosting, and we really got on even better then. And this really sort of started this friendship where we would just travel and do lots of travel together, and we've met and traveled together at least once a year, except last year, but at least once a year for I don't know, 7 years, something like that, maybe 6, 7 years. And yeah, and it was because of Seb's sort of background in logistics, and both Seb's and my having worked in the tourism industry before, and over lots and lots of glasses of wine, that we decided that we would run a trip to Thailand together. So that was how it all really started.
So just so y'all know, so Bridie is referring to Seb. Seb is Bridie's partner. Seb stands for Sebastian, Seb. And so Bridie and Seb, at the time we met them, at the time Bridie actually reached out to me from related to the podcast. And by the time we met them in California, Seb and Bridie were living in Thailand, which is actually the backdrop of your video. No longer in Thailand. Now she is facing the window that is just snow, because they're in Squamish, in just north of Vancouver in Canada. So Seb is Canadian. Bridie, as you can hear from her accent, Bridie likes to be mysterious about what she doesn't like to claim her origins, but as you can hear, maybe if you're very good at accents, you could probably detect it's British and Australian, because she's got really elements of both. I can hear both in your accent. And so, but Bridie and Seb, as she alluded to, they met, well, she can tell the story, but they met when they were tour leaders, and in, I think it was Morocco. Is that right?
That's right.
And then, long story short, they lived in Southeast Asia, in different parts of Southeast Asia. Bridie became an international school teacher, and that's where they were living in Thailand when we met them, we being David and I. And it was really fun. If you've met Seb, and if you've heard me say this before, Seb's a character and he's amazing. But one of my favorite memories is that first dinner and thinking about just all I'm picturing is what the conversation was with you and Seb, between you and Seb before that dinner. I'm just picturing you saying, please behave yourself. Please promise me. Just please promise me.
This is somebody who I really respect and I really admire. Just please don't embarrass me.
I can just see it because knowing him now, and I started seeing like little threads of it at the end, toward the end of dinner, because we had gotten so comfortable together so quickly. But knowing him now, I'm picturing him at that dinner. I'm like, wow, he was really well behaved. He must have used all of his self-control for you. That's how much he loves you, Brady.
Yes.
He was able to do it for an hour. But when it started getting crazy is when we started looking at pictures of our cats and sharing pictures of our cats. And that's when his passion, his excitement started coming out, because you guys love your kitties as much as we love our kitties. So as Bridie said, Bridie and Seb came to Italy with us twice. I was running trips, or I was a host of vegan trips with a different travel company. And Bridie and Seb came with us on that first Italy trip. And afterwards, the four of us stuck around a little longer. You, I think, stuck around even longer. We stayed in Italy and Rome together, and Trastevere, in that section of Rome. And just, I really like these people. We really got on really well. And that was really the beginning. I convinced you, I don't know how, to come on the second Italy trip. And
the same itinerary, pretty much, wasn't it? The same itinerary.
It was pretty much the same itinerary.
I just really wanted to be with you.
I know,
David.
Clearly, I can again hear that conversation. And what's really cool too is because that wasn't the right fit for me in terms of the folks who had run that trip, who had organized that trip, and that really became clear on the second trip. I mean, the first trip, I think we were kind of aware of it, but I was willing to give it another try. We had a different group of people, and it was on that trip that Seb started saying, we could do this. We could do this. We could do this together. And I was like, no, that's not going to work. This isn't going to work. Anyway, but Seb and Bridie they'd worked in the tourism industry with Intrepid Travel, which is a travel company still running, and now starting to do vegan trips, because that's really the trend. That's the trend right now. And so all that's to say, Seb said, listen, let me put together a trip to Thailand, and we'll do it. And we'll run the trip, and, we'll create the itinerary. You are the host, you get the people, and we'll do all the logistics. And I said, okay, let's try it. And it was a huge success. And several of the people on that first Thailand trip have now become regular travelers with us, and have traveled with some of them have traveled with us 4 times.
Yes.
And have now a 5th. Like, there are people who just have become regulars. And so that was the beginning. And I'll say this before I get to more questions. And then the thing, Bridie for a long time, as you know, Bridie, I'll just talk about you as if you're not here. But Bridie for a long time had wanted to marry her passion for animals, just like many of us do, and passion for veganism, with her other talents and passions and background. And that happened to be travel. And so after there was a couple of trips where, again, I think we had a convinced Seb that this is something that could work if you left your job. Now, many of the trips we ran, really up until COVID, were while you were still working as an international school teacher, but luckily as a teacher, you had a lot of time off. So we were able to organize those things, but you left your job to create World Vegan Travel, which meant you are now the travel company officially. You were then, but like officially you're World Vegan Travel, and you partner with people like me and to run the trips. So you started World Vegan Travel, left your job, and then COVID hit. Great year to start a travel.
Yeah. But we had three trips between me quitting my job and coronavirus. Oh, I think four in total, but yeah, we had big dreams for 2020, but things will pick up.
They will pick up and they will change. So to answer all of your questions about that, everybody, that's just how it started. And that's where we are now. And we'll talk about that. So one of the questions that also came in was, can you name the 16 countries you have been to together without looking?
I can't hear you.
Oh, can you hear me now? Did I just like drop? What? Let me check my.
Everything's.
What? Everything's fine over here.
It froze for a little while.
Okay.
And then the sound stopped.
Okay.
Let me check my internet speed. Should be fine.
It's hard to know if
I still can't hear anything.
What the? Can you hear me now? No. That's weird. We had some technical difficulties. Getting to the next question, Brighty. So we have been to 16 countries together. And one of the questions we got from someone was, can you name the 16 countries without looking?
Okay.
Okay, do it. Thailand, Vietnam. I'm just starting with like continents. Thailand, Vietnam, Rwanda. What?
No, I was trying to think of any others in Asia, but no.
Okay.
Rwanda, right. Botswana, South Africa, Zimbabwe. Is there anything else in Africa? I don't think so.
No, I think that was the 4.
Yeah.
That's right. Because you went to Kenya on your own without us. So we didn't do
that's
Kenya
right.
with you.
Then United States to see you. Very quick couple of days in London. So England, France.
Scotland.
Oh, of course, Scotland. Yep.
That's 10.
Luxembourg. Germany. Slovakia. Austria. Hungary. Did we say Italy?
No, that was it. That's 16.
Italy, 16.
Yeah, that's it. And we should have started with Italy. That was the beginning. But actually, I guess the beginning was the United States. And the irony is that we haven't seen you in Canada. So when Brighty and Seb moved from Thailand to Canada, we were quite happy. Obviously, we're closer to them and on the same coast, which is amazing. And then COVID happened. I mean, it happened. You were moving while it was happening. So we have not been able to visit them, and it's torture, but at least we're on the same time zone.
That has made things a lot easier many times.
Oh my God. I mean, honestly, just coordinating meetings and even of like, kind of Q&As we've done with our travelers, but also just our own conversations. It's just been, if we wanted to have a glass of wine, either you'd have to drink morning wine or we wouldn't do that very much. So let's ask some questions about the trips that we run together, and then we can kind of intersperse, because there are some questions about us just traveling on our own. Well, some of them don't differentiate, but some of the answers might be either trips we've done just the 4 of us, or trips that were our CPG trips. So CPG trips, if you who haven't figured it out, CPG, they're my initials. Seb is the one who really started calling them CPG trips. I mean, I've been called CPG for a long time, but Seb started calling them CPG trips. And so there have been some people who are like, what's CPG? It's my name. So, and it's actually like, I think the initials for like some kind of marketing thing. So, or like in business. So some people who know like business and trade are like, why are you CPG? So David has just joined us as if we're just beginning this. We are just beginning. You'd think we were deep into it, but Brighty had technical issues that kept us.
I saw on WhatsApp, I was coming down here to yell at Brighty.
We're recording.
Yeah, it was.
We're all yelling at Brighty. Brighty. I could hear Seb. Brighty. We've already told our story. This is David. Those of you who don't know, this is my husband. He is one of the 4 of us who travel do our trips. David keeps threatening to do DMG trips. DMG is him. Not going to happen. Like, well, you can get the people. We can do DMD trips, but just say DMD. I don't know who you are.
Those are different trips.
DMD.
I'm on those.
DND?
DMG.
DND trips? Dungeons and Dragons? I don't know who's going to run
I'm
those.
not a 13-year-old boy anymore, so I'm not going to go on a trip.
Would Seb be able to run D&D trips? Because he does play video games.
think that would be his ultimate dream, to be able to run a trip that was based going on like the destinations on his favorite computer games. I think he would really get a kick out of that. And like, oh yeah, don't give him that idea. Let's keep that one to ourselves.
Is that right? Well, so David wants castles. Seb wants video games. I mean, I want Lord of the Rings. So we got to just do a Lord of the Rings trip to New Zealand.
New Zealand, perhaps.
Yeah, we got to do that. What does Bridie want?
Iceland.
Just Iceland. No theme, just Iceland. Okay.
I've been doing some research. It seems like an interesting place to go.
Oh, I really would go to Iceland for sure. We just watched an Icelandic TV show. It was really awesome. I mean, we've been watching more than one Icelandic thing. I think it's like such a cliche. Like, I just saw that Icelandic TV show. All right. So the question that we were going to answer, it was, what am I asking? Well, one of the questions is, what countries or areas have you traveled to? Well, actually, I thought it'd be fun. We can while David's here, we can answer a question about, have there been any funny mishaps on any of your trips, either with our travelers or with ourselves? Any mishaps that we can talk about? Like, we don't want to talk about when we lost that person. I'm just kidding. We never lost anybody. But David and I were talking about a couple of the fun mishaps. I don't know if fun is the word.
Maybe not fun at the time, but in hindsight.
One of the big trips we were going on, the first one that we were doing, this is before we took travelers to Rwanda with us. We were going to Rwanda and Botswana and South Africa and Zimbabwe, all the four of us. And David practically broke his back before leaving because he fell down the stairs here at the house, which was not funny. Wasn't funny. It was horrible. And he is a trooper, right? When we were going on like treks in Rwanda, like massive treks. And David, he was okay. Obviously, he didn't break his back, but it was a couple weeks before we were leaving, wasn't it, honey?
Mm-hmm. It was pretty bad. I had to pop some painkillers in Frankfurt.
Right.
We were changing planes because I was in so much pain walking around with a backpack.
Right.
Full of clothes for like, a month in Africa. That was the worst day. The rest of it, I was able to get through it, but that was pretty tough.
You did handle it really well, because it was one of those trips where we couldn't just bring our roller bags, because the little planes we were going to be on, we had to be mindful of weight. And so we had to take backpacks with us,
it was duffel bag. They were
duffel bags.
You weren't allowed to bring a hard case suitcase. You had to bring a soft, duffel bag, basically, because if it couldn't fit in the four-seater plane that we were flying into the middle of Botswana in, they just left it on the side of the airstrip, and you like picked it up on the way home.
It was tough, but you did it. And you were fine, and it didn't we didn't have to leave you behind.
No.
You didn't slow us down.
You had crutches in Vietnam. I
did. So yeah, I tore my meniscus before we left. I have a feeling all these mishaps are going to be you and me, and not Brady and Seb. But I tore my meniscus before Vietnam. I probably gave you guys a heart attack saying like, I don't know if I could go. Well, we had 15 people already signed up on a CPG trip, but I got a cortisone shot in my knee and didn't take for a few days, but it worked. And I was eventually able to I think I was using one crutch by the end, but it's great because all of the photos of us in Vietnam are Seb holding my crutches, because I didn't want all the photos of me on crutches. So I'd be like, here's Seb, hold my crutches.
And so there's a bunch of photos of Seb in the background with a wielding a crutch in some weird way. But you look fine in the photo.
I look great. And it was a really good experience to see how different airlines treat you in a wheelchair. Because I was wheeled about and I was treated very well. It was actually quite nice to get the I wouldn't wish
as it should be. I would have rather not have had it, but it did get us I couldn't walk. So it was like we needed
I loved it. It was like, I was feeling fine, and it was like we were VIPs.
Do you remember when we were at the airport? We flew out of San Jose that day. You remember that when we were in the San Jose airport flying out to Vietnam? Remember what happened?
Oh gosh, what happened?
Do you remember this, Brady? Did we tell you this? There was like a fan, a follower who like saw me in the airport. She's like, "Hi, are you Colleen?" I'm like in a wheelchair, like with my leg up, it's early in the morning. And she's like, "I'm so sorry to bother you, but like, oh my God." And that happened actually when we were in Italy.
That's right.
Airport. Yes. When we were in Italy, and wasn't there another
You and I were in Dublin.
We were in Dublin, and there was
like around town. Somebody recognized you.
Yeah, that was fun. Anyway,
so you made their days.
Well, it was fun.
My other speaking of mishaps, my other favorite mishap is what I unwittingly inflicted upon Brady and Seb when we were in the airport, and I was trying to be helpful. So I saw what I thought was one of their bags coming around the carousel, so I grabbed it. And it looked, kind of like their bag. And Brady, I don't remember exactly how you figured it out. It was like we were putting it in the car.
No, you took it out of it. They were taking it out.
We were at the
Airbnb. That's what it was.
Yeah, we've driven. So we all tend to have our own, like our roles. We've all kind of fallen into, the four of us, either on our own trips or the CPG trips. And Seb always takes care of the luggage on the turnstile, and he's just always really mindful and really good about that. And gets the cart, goes to the turnstile, gets the luggage, counts the luggage. And David, that's not David's job, but David wanted to be helpful, which is very sweet and noble. And so he got the luggage off the turnstile, put it on the cart, we put it in the taxi. 45-minute drive from the airport in South Africa in Cape Town to our Airbnb in Cape Town. We were tired. It was late. We were excited about dinner. There's vegan restaurants there in Cape Town. And we get there, taxi, open the trunk. David takes out the bag. Seb looks at the bag, one of you, and says, "That's not my bag."
So we had to go back to the airport and go through the airport, go into the airport through arrivals, which is not something that is often done, and is you have to prove all sorts of things. And we swapped the bags over very quickly, but of course feel really bad for the person that expected their bag to be on the conveyor belt, that it wasn't. We all felt really bad about that, but it was a genuine mistake. And lesson for everyone: check your bags before you leave the airport. There are notices everywhere. Read them. Read them, take them on board. It could happen to anyone.
It could. And I mean, the thing about all of these mishaps is there's lessons in all of them. Don't tear your meniscus. I don't know if that's a lesson. Don't fall down the steps. Don't take the wrong bag, right? I'm thinking of another mishap, also not our fault. I'm thinking in Rwanda, norovirus ran through our second group of travelers. But, here's the thing about CPG trips. Here's the thing about World Vegan Travel. If you need a private helicopter to take you from Nyungwe Forest to Kigali, we can arrange that for you. So one of our travelers was so sick that she could not drive back with us on a windy road. And because we were going up north to see the gorillas, the dream part of the trip, the end of the trip. And one of our travelers was just so sick from norovirus ran through the whole group. But some of you guys didn't get it. Some of us did. I thought I was patient zero until I found out from one of the travelers on Rwanda 1 that she had gotten it on the last day, so that it passed probably from her to me, and then I passed it on to our travelers on Rwanda 2. So that was fine. But anyway, but we make it work. No matter what, we make it work.
Yeah, I'm also thinking about on our Alsace trip, where 3 days before our bus train ride to go from Paris to Alsace, the train was cancelled.
Oh, this was all during the protests.
Yeah.
That's right.
Right.
And we had to, 3 days out, we had to organize for a bus to take us from Paris to Strasbourg, which is a lot longer than a train that can go 250 kilometers an hour. And of course, Seb managed to deal with it and get it all sorted out, which it was very stressful for him. But you can imagine 20-ish people, more than 20 people, 25 people, transferring them all the way down there. But Seb is very resourceful in these situations, and you managed to figure it out. But yeah, that was a little bit of a stressy one. But it just meant for a bit of a longer travel day, I guess.
Yeah, and it wasn't our fault.
Not too bad.
And it was the sorry, you okay? You don't seem very comfortable. Yeah. So
I'm going to let you two take it from
okay. Say goodbye to David.
Bye, David.
Bye, David.
Bye.
Thanks for joining. So, I mean, that wasn't our fault. It was because of the protests, and you guys are so resourceful. I mean, what people don't know, and it's okay, you don't have to know. That's what part of what people pay for is the stress that happens behind the scenes for us to make sure that everybody's taken care of. Because one of the questions, and we can come back to mishaps, but one of the questions is about group travel, and is it for me? And here's an example as to why doing something like group travel is such a great idea, because somebody else is taking care of all that for you. That if you now look, part of the fun of traveling alone or with a friend, I have a number of stories that are not where Seb is taking care of the problems, like when I missed the ferry when we were in Tulum, Mexico, and had to take a biplane from the port, from the little island in Tulum to the port. Seb wasn't there to figure that out for me. We had to figure that out ourselves. Traveling as a part of a group where someone else is taking care of that stuff. And that's what's really lovely, is what we've heard from our travelers is they're so happy to just someone else is taking care of all of this. Not only the things that go wrong like that, because those things happen, but those are really the exceptions. But what people love that we take care of, and that's why you travel on a group trip, is everything else, all the logistics, all the food, all the hotels, all the transfers, all of the luggage, everything. You don't have to worry about a thing. You don't think about a thing. And people do talk about how they just go limp on these trips.
I was researching and I found out just today, actually, for something I was writing, that we make on average 35,000 conscious decisions a day. Can you believe that? And, can you imagine how many that there are if you're thinking about getting like public transportation from New Delhi to Agra in India, for example? There's just decisions all over the place. Whereas if you can just follow somebody and they will sort it out for you, and especially if you've only got a few days holiday, if you've got a year and you've got time to, explore and make mistakes, then of course that's great. But if you really want to relax and really actually have a break, then group travel can be a really great way to do it. Of course, you can just go to a beach and just hang out on a beach for a whole week. And of course, that's lovely for some people. But if you actually want to travel around a place and go sightseeing and do all of these different things, but you don't want to have to do a lot of decision making, then group travel can be a really good idea.
And more than decision making, obviously, a lot of the countries we go to, it's a different language. And most people don't speak, if you live in Europe, a lot of people speak different European languages. It's not the case for people in North America. Even a lot of our travelers are from Australia, North America. We've had some from England. So these are all English, primarily English speaking languages, countries. And so you go to these other countries with us and there's a language barrier. So in terms of getting around, but also in terms of food, that's another aspect that is a real benefit of having someone else take care of all those things. And so Bridie and Seb, when we first, so we did Thailand because they knew it really well. They'd lived there for several years. Same thing with Vietnam. Seb had lived there for several years. Bridie had lived there for a time as well. So Vietnam was an obvious place. We'll come back to Vietnam. I hope we go back to Vietnam, but we'll come back to that topic. And then when we started looking at France, right? I mean, that was a big one because Seb grew up in Canada, so he speaks French, and Bridie had spent a lot of time as a tour leader in France, about a year or so, Bridie, right? And you speak, I'll say fluent French, and you're very, very humble about it, but you speak more than I do, and more than our travelers. And so that's why we started doing a bunch of trips in France. And so we've done a couple to Alsace, which is the part that shares border with Germany, that went back and forth between France and Germany, and we're doing more in France. We've got lots of places in France to go. And that's a country that not only in terms of a language barrier for people, but also has not traditionally been the friendliest when it comes to eating plants versus animal products.
Especially outside the big cities, there are not a huge amount of vegan options.
changing all the time, right? I mean, changing all the time, even in Alsace, which is amazing to see the change. But I mean, my gosh, I was talking about our trips after our second trip to Italy together. That's when we went and we spent a week in Provence after being in Italy, the four of us. And we were in the countryside. Now for us, I mean, I love just eating simple foods, getting food from the market, and then, eating just bread and, and fresh vegetables. Like that's fine for me. But in terms of eating out at any restaurants, it was not easy. And first, we spent some time in France, but in Paris, the difference between being in Paris that year and then coming back a few years later, what a difference. And now it's just exploding. I mean, COVID's kind of affecting everything, but it's absolutely exploding. Big difference from that first time we were in Paris together, and certainly from 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Yeah. And the countryside, I mean, the countryside is not easy. So the Dordogne trip that we've got coming up, I mean, this video might be dated, but we hopefully will run this Dordogne trip more than once. This is the trip that we had to kind of put a pause on because of COVID, but tell people about the Dordogne. It's an area that a lot of people don't know about. It's a region that most people don't travel to. And yet it is such an incredible gem. And I know you guys spent some time there recently to scout the trip. Can you talk about the Dordogne, let people know about that region and what it's about?
Sure. So France is very interesting. It has very distinctive regions. And I would say that Dordogne quickly becomes a favorite of anyone who actually gets to go there. So it's quite rural, and it's extremely green. It's located in the southwest of France. I would say that after Paris, the Paris region, maybe Alsace and Provence are perhaps the most popular with tourists, and maybe fourth or fifth is the Dordogne. So people often go to the Dordogne on their fourth or fifth visit to France, for example. It is really, really an interesting place. And I actually recorded a podcast with Anne Leese, who is our tour guide for the Dordogne. So maybe we can pop a link to that in the comments. But it is so beautiful. It's full of history, like so much history, because it was a place for people from, I think, 17,000-year-old rock art paintings have been discovered there, and they have been all incredibly well, not all of them, I'm sure some of them haven't been, but some are incredibly well preserved, and you can go and visit them and learn all about this incredible history. What we learned from them is just amazing. I know, Colin, you really like these cave arts because they really show this relationship between humans and animals from thousands and thousands of years ago, the real reverence that humans had for animals. So you've got that aspect of history, and then you have tons and tons of sort of medieval history as well. This part of France has many of the castles that were all over France, but they have been preserved. I recently discovered from talking with Anne Leese that Louis the Sun King, he actually had many, many castles actually destroyed during his reign around France, but for reasons that we go into in the podcast, the ones in the Dordogne are actually very well preserved, and they were never destroyed. So that's why there's so many castles there, and that's really, really fun to see these castles. And what else can I say about the Dordogne? It's just extremely pretty. Think of it as, it's quite English countryside in terms of rolling hills, woodlands, extremely green, beautiful winding rivers, stunning sandstone architecture, sandstone roofs. It's just really, really beautiful.
I can't wait. So yeah, whether or not you come on the trip with us, but and it's not a vegan friendly place being in the countryside. Obviously the trip with us is all vegan, so we'll take care of that. We take over a villa, and we're going to the first elephant sanctuary in Europe as well. So there's lots to see, even if you don't come with us. Go check it out, because I'm saying go check it out. I can't wait to check it out because I haven't been there, but I, based on the research you've done, and because I know those caves so well, the Lascaux caves, to go to those prehistoric caves is just, for me, I'm giddy with excitement. about going there. So yeah, so that's just more. And then we're going to Italy. And we also take the suggestions our travelers give us. I mean, Rwanda happened because the people in Thailand, our travelers in Thailand, we were still selling Vietnam, and our travelers in Thailand heard whisper that we were maybe thinking of doing a trip to Rwanda because Seb had already been planting that seed. We had done the trip ourselves, the four of us, but he thought, well, a CPG trip to Rwanda could really work. And when that just seed got out, the traveler said, if you organize a trip to Rwanda, we will go with you. And that's why we sold out of our Rwanda trip within 48 hours. And then that's when we added a second one and brought, and that sold out within a week or so, for the most part. And then it was a go after a week. And then I think we sold the final couple at the end of Vietnam, because people at Vietnam were like, I want to go to Rwanda with you. So we take the suggestions very seriously that people have, and we do our best to make these trips happen. But they're not a go until they're a go. So they might sound great to you, but until you actually sign up, we have to give obviously deposits to the vendors in these countries, and so they're not a go until there's enough of interest. And right now it's a little hard because of COVID, and maybe we can talk about that. So, we don't want this to be too dated, because there's a lot on here that is not relevant to COVID, all of the traveling we're talking about. But this is just a funny time, because we do believe that travel it's going to happen again, obviously. And there's a lot of talk that travel is going to be even more of a boon after the pandemic, because people just want to get out and they want to see things and they want to see the world. They want to get out of their houses. And of course, when will that happen? That everything is normal again? Well, I think it's going to be a couple of years before everything's quite normal again, if we want to use that word normal. But to do it safely, to do it in a way that everybody feels confident, that countries will let us in. What are your thoughts about that? Maybe just give a couple things, because I know things will change. So what you even say here about precautions we're taking may change, and they may change based on countries' rules, and they may change because of vaccines, and enough people have been vaccinated that we have herd immunity in countries, et cetera. So I know it can change, but what are some things that we're doing to just make sure people can feel confident traveling with us during this time?
Sure. So
when I say during this time, we're still, the first trips in 2021 are in the fall, but we need to know by March, but they're not until the fall, and Botswana is already a go, and that's in December of 2021.
Yeah. So we have really looked carefully and sort of tried to envisage every possible scenario. And we've got very clear, we went through it, so it's very, very clear, because like our booking terms and conditions. So people could go onto our website and they can have a bit of a look. I won't go through all of it because I might forget a detail, and that would be terrible, but I invite you to go and have a look at the website and look at these terms and conditions. And I think you can pay a deposit, and if the trip doesn't go ahead, you by the time we have to say that it's a go, then you'll get that deposit back. And there is a possibility that there could be some sort of voucher if something were to happen last minute. But I think that we feel very confident that things are getting back to normal, but we understand people's hesitation. But have a look at our terms and conditions and just see what you think. And in terms of things happening on the trip, something that I learned in March of last year is that travel arrangements could be extremely challenging, and anything can happen in terms of flights and getting cancelled and on all of these kinds of things. If the airline suddenly stops doing flights and all of these kinds of things, that of course is something that we need to think about and to mitigate as well. So travel insurance is a really important thing that our travelers must have. We've also done a lot of thinking about what we need to have, a risk assessment about what we would do if there was somebody that was displaying symptoms for coronavirus. Like, how would we get a test? What would we do in case we had one person or more than one person has to isolate? Like, what would we do if we needed to get medical treatment for these people? I mean, these are all the things that you think about for our trip travelers anyway, because anything can happen on a trip. Somebody could have a heart attack or something like that. But of course, with something that's contagious, then you have to be very aware of that. And we're working with local operators, and we've been really, really impressed with the kinds of measures that they have put in place to protect travelers.
And I would say in this case, kind of another benefit of traveling with a group, because we are just together. And especially if everybody takes the precautions that we're going to recommend before our trip, certainly, if people have gotten a vaccine or if they'll quarantine before the trip, any tests before the trip. So, so there's a lot of benefits. And like Botswana, for instance, I mean, we're the only people in the camp aside from the staff. And, obviously they're taking their own precautions because they want to keep running. Yeah. And so, yeah, it's, the travel industry has obviously been hit very hard. The hospitality industry been hit very hard. And, we've talked in a separate podcast and we can refer people to that. But of course, how the safari industry and the animal protection industries in places like Africa have really been affected, because when there aren't people there to protect the animals from poachers, and people there meaning, travelers who come to these places and pay money to go see the animals with the trekkers and with the guides, when the poachers know that the travelers aren't there, they take more chances and they're much more bold, and they have killed animals. And they have killed.
There was a few instances of that happening in Botswana. I actually had did another podcast with Andrew Flatt from the Desert Delta Safaris that we're working with for our trips at the end of the year, and we talked all about this and how coronavirus had affected his employees and the business, and he talked that there were several instances of that. But one of the things that I thought was really interesting was he said that they've done a huge amount of sensitivity training for the staff. So an example of what that might look like, for example, is saying, would you like me to pour your drink instead of pouring it for you? These kinds of things. So they're really, they're desperate to open up again and want to make sure that it is as safe as possible. I mean, we're talking about quite a few months in the future, but right now that's what the situation is.
And, there are, I think, like with everything, I tend to be a consummate optimist. There are good things that are going to come of this. I think there's more awareness and sensitivity around travel, around being inclusive, around being ecologically minded, around being more professional. I mean, all of these things, I think good will come of this. And I will say, our trips are, you're talking about pouring, our trips these are really quality trips. We vet the people we work with. I mean, you and Seb, especially, when we trust you doing that because we're all like-minded. And I think that's something that people really recognize, is that we really work with really professional people on the ground in the countries we go to. And what's so beautiful is to watch how they transform and how seriously they take the lifestyle choices we make. And, yes, they're in the hospitality industry and they have incentive to really make sure they serve us well, in the sense of, making sure everything's vegan and making sure there's no animals exploited. But we vet so carefully, to the degree that we work with hotels to take down heads of animals, if there are any, right? I mean, anything that would be offensive or we can't protect people from the world. The world is what it is. But when you're on the trips with us, we really do try and make sure that this is a time where you really can get away from animals being exploited, meat being served, animals being served everywhere. And the places we go, especially when we take over villas, even if we don't take over villas, we make sure we have our own section in the restaurant, so you don't have to smell the bacon for breakfast. And I mean, those are the kinds of things we do. And, one of the questions is here about zero waste. And so both from a zero waste perspective and a vegan perspective, I mean, haven't we seen the most incredible lengths to which people go who we work with on the ground at these hotels, the tour leaders? I mean, Chi is a perfect example. The zero waste efforts we went to in Vietnam, which was not easy. I mean, it just wasn't easy. I mean, was Vietnam one of the main,
A lot of single-use plastic.
Yeah, a lot of single-use plastic. And no, and just I want to qualify that by saying there are countries where it's harder to kind of have no plastic because of the water that is not potable. So there are, when we're in Africa, we're not necessarily in places where you want to drink the water without, you want to drink filtered water or you want to drink bottled water.
Yeah,
and so,
but there are some zero waste options for that. We've managed to work those out in the past. There are alternatives. There are solutions to that. They're a bit more of a hassle for the people and for us, I think, but it's effort that is worth doing. Definitely.
It is, and it's lovely. So in that case, we encourage people to bring their own refillable bottles. So instead of everybody having single plastic bottles in the rooms, when we have the hoteliers take them out of the rooms. Now, we also make sure that people can get them if they want them, if they need more water and they don't have enough in their bottles, obviously, but we have the large, filtered water bottles, that people can then refill their bottles with. So it just cuts down. I mean, we did this in Kigali. I mean, we had our own special room for this. I mean, we really do go through great lengths. I'm also remembering when we were with Chi in Vietnam, Chi was our partner on the ground in Vietnam. And, she lives in these areas. She knows them really well. But I remember when we went to the soy milk maker. You remember that? I just remember we had the soy milk the next day for breakfast. This is soy milk that was made for us by one of the homes that we visited. And this was in, I think this was it, where was it?
Hoi An.
It was in Hoi An. So I just remember the next day, I remember hearing that Chi had gone back to that house where they had made the soy milk and just brought thermoses and, jugs and her own, so that she could bring it to the hotel the next day, as opposed to them just filling it up in plastic bottles that were going to be thrown out, like, how they would have.
She's a superstar. She is.
Superstar. And didn't she open a vegan restaurant? And
she did. She did. Sadly, it's on hiatus at the moment. Vietnam's closed everything for tourists at the moment, but there is starting to be talk of reopening again.
Yeah. So just amazing people. And again, that's a testament to you and Seb and the people you find. But our standards are very high. And so when you travel with us, we can't say that everything's perfect. I mean, it's an imperfect world, but we really do our best to make sure that everybody's spoiled. So aside from all of the things that your money pays for, the food, it's all inclusive, the food, the flights within the country, if we do that, any transportation, it even includes gratuities and tips for the leaders. And we tip everybody very.
Not for us, not for Seb and I, but for tour guides. I want to specify that. And like for service staff in the hotel, anyone that needs to be tipped that's not us, we don't want that, but everyone else, you don't need to worry about any tipping, because that can be a little bit frustrating. You don't know how much to tip, and you don't have the right money on you, all of those things. So we just include all of that in the price and make sure that everyone is getting the tip that they deserve. And
And so the gratuities, the transportation, the food, obviously, and generous amounts of beverages, over and above the generous amount that we already provide. People would buy that on their own, but I mean, it's already a pretty generous amount, but also surprises. I think we agree that we all love surprises. Seb probably even more than, all of us. We just love surprising folks. And it's been really lovely to see people not expect things. And I don't want to say anything because you never know, you might come on a trip that we've done in the past, and I don't want to spoil that. People ask obviously about the food in these countries. One question was, were there places that were more vegan friendly than you expected? Or were you surprised that a place was more vegan friendly? And were you surprised that a place was less vegan friendly than you would have expected? And again, this would pertain, I think, to our trips, our CPG trips, but even we've done together. And any favorite food memories related to that?
I think I always had a pretty accurate expectation of whether a place was vegan friendly or not. I would say. I knew that Thailand was very vegan friendly. I knew that Vietnam would be doable. France, obviously, I knew that wasn't so vegan friendly. So I knew that I had to do a lot of work there. And Rwanda, similarly so. There's not a vegan restaurant in the whole country, I don't think. So I wouldn't say that I was caught out by surprise by anything, would you say?
No, I'm thinking of maybe, because obviously by the time we run our trips, we know what we're bringing the travelers to, but I'm thinking also on our trips, I think again, I just tend to be really I think we're all very optimistic, and we're always so thrilled when we find things that we don't expect. And I'm remembering a couple things. I'm remembering, for instance, in outside of Cape Town in Franschhoek in South Africa.
Yes,
Restaurant.
yes.
Remember that? There was a restaurant in this little town called Franschhoek where there's also a farm animal sanctuary, which is where we're going as part of our
No, we're going to Greyton.
Sorry, we're going to Greyton. So we were there.
Go to Franschhoek.
We went to Franschhoek. I thought we were going to the farm animal sanctuary. We're not going back to Franschhoek. There's another one.
There's another one. It's a very nice one. Very nice one. Yeah.
Well, who knew there was even a farm animal sanctuary called Farm Sanctuary in Franschhoek, which is this little town in the wine country outside of Cape Town. So when we were there, we had hired a driver who was a friend of a friend, and she and her husband, get hired to drive people to places around South Africa and different tourist places. But we had told her we wanted to go up to Franschhoek, and we had made arrangements at a restaurant there. Was it called Foliage? We've had this conversation.
That's sounding right. That's sounding accurate.
Foliage. And we knew it was called Foliage. So we knew it was kind of vegan friendly, but we called and we asked if it was, and they said it was. We arrived for lunch and they gave us our own vegan menu, and they were making things that they hadn't made before for anybody else. So that wasn't on the main menu. And was it not the most gorgeous?
Oh my goodness. We'll try to put some photos in the comments or something of this, because it was really stunning. The cauliflower was insane.
It was insane, like the prettiest lunch we've ever had, and delicious and lovely. So those were the kinds of things where you're just surprised.
Yeah,
and then
that was surprising.
Remember Zimbabwe? Brady. So Zimbabwe.
Yes.
Not a favorite place of, I think, all of us. I think we felt the weight of the dictatorial leadership in that country. And I don't know, I wasn't that impressed with Victoria Falls, but Zimbabwe, we and we stayed in, it was very masculine, kind of animal exploitative place. You could feel it even in the place we stayed. Remember, there were animals all over hides.
I remember the really weird thing, lampshades made out of porcupine spines.
Oh God, I didn't remember that.
Yeah, I remember seeing that and being really icky about that.
Yeah, especially considering, what Rwanda is like, what Botswana is like. It's not like that at all. And Zimbabwe was very, very different. So we had, we made do at we were staying there, I think only 1 or 2 nights, I think, just because we were going, was it from Rwanda to Botswana or something like that? One of those things. We had to stop there on the way. So we decided to go see Victoria Falls 1 night or 2 nights. So we made do in the hotel with the food. But then we were walking to Victoria Falls and we saw a hotel/restaurant, and we looked at the board and there was a vegan burger, specifically a vegan burger. And it was, what was it? A quinoa and something burger. And it was amazing. But remember we walked in and talked to the host.
I don't remember. Remind me.
Bridie was very, she said, "Excuse me. So we noticed the vegan burger on your menu. Do you have anything else that's vegan? That's amazing. That's wonderful." And the host said, "I don't think we do." And at that point, I think he brought the manager over, and the manager said, "Well, I think we've got some of those vegan meats. Remember?" And
like
they
Fries, Fries is a South African brand, I think.
Yes, Fries is a South African, a very well-known brand in South Africa, and it's now really making its way more internationally. And they had a freezer full of sausages,
and
burgers and patties and chicken, and it was all vegan. And it was just hilarious to watch the face of the maitre d'. He was like, "Oh, I had no idea." And it took only us asking, but there it was. And we had a lovely lunch there. So I love those little surprises that you come upon when you ask. And so whether that's you traveling, with us, obviously we're making sure everybody's taken care of, but like when you're traveling on your own, just don't underestimate people's awareness. They're individuals with their own lives and experiences and their own curiosity. And you never know who you're going to come across. They might just happen to be the manager or the maitre d' or the host of a restaurant or a hotel who has influence, who will then want to accommodate you because that's the industry they're in.
That's right. You don't get into hospitality if you don't want to be hospitable.
Exactly. So some of the favorite meals someone asked about, I am remembering with great fondness. I'm looking at my notes here, but I'm remembering, I was not a huge fan of Vietnamese food. You've heard me say that before. And going to Vietnam turned me on to Vietnamese food. So some of my favorite meals were in Vietnam.
That was definitely a mistake on your behalf, not liking Vietnamese.
For years. Yeah. All right. Well, I wasn't blaming anybody else. Didn't say it was anybody else's fault.
You were wrong.
I was wrong. I mean, I think I just had the notion that it was very meat-centric. I also had the notion that it was very noodle-centric, and I don't tend to love thick noodles, and there are a lot of noodle dishes in Vietnamese food. But I just never had pho because I didn't have it when I ate meat and animals. And I just wasn't looking for it. And so falling in love with pho, which is a traditional Vietnamese soup, for those who don't know, and especially since wherever we had it was just amazing. And yuba was used in a lot of the pho that we had. It was just so much fun to discover that. And then remember our dinner in Hue.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
The royal, so Hue it was the seat of the royal family. And so it's these, 15 course dinners have been a thing for hundreds of years in Vietnam. And so you guys had even surprised us, and David and I were dressed up as the king and queen.
We were all dressed up.
And then everybody dressed up as our courtesans. I don't know if you're a courtesan, but that didn't go that far. But it was so lovely, and dancers and music. And so we really emphasized the cultural aspects of the countries we're in as well. History, culture, food, and animal protection. So one question about the animal protection. Actually, I want to say one more thing about some other favorite meals. And this is what you'll experience with us, folks, if you come to Italy with us, is Italy. Do you remember the 10-hour-long lunch we had in Italy, or however long that lunch was? It's like a 6-hour-long lunch.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Best lunch we've ever had.
Mm-hmm. It was pretty awesome. I'm thinking about in France, the high tea.
Yes, for sure. That's on my list in Paris.
Oh, is it? Okay, yeah.
Afternoon tea.
Oh, yes. We always fight about whether it's an afternoon or high tea. And I know that you're right, but I can never remember which the right one is.
It's because we use the word high, I think, to connote the kind of affluent aspect of what feels very fancy. And I think when people say high tea, I think the inference is that it's kind of fancier, when high tea actually just refers to the high table that one would sit at, like a lunch or a dinner. And afternoon tea is really the tradition of having kind of little cakes and little sandwiches between lunch and dinner around 4 o'clock. That's afternoon tea. And so hashtag accuracy. I can't help it. You know me. But that tea is amazing in Paris.
Yes. Yeah. I think the chef that organizes that he has left the Shangri-La Hotel now. We'll need to track him down for where is he now? We need to find out.
We do need to find out, because our France trip to the Dordogne is starting in Bordeaux, but most people will fly into Paris, and no doubt people will want to stop at a couple places in Paris before they take the train down to Bordeaux or fly down to Bordeaux. So we'll find out. I'm thinking of the first breakfast in Thailand. I think there were 30 or 40 options for that breakfast. Remember that?
Yeah, that was pretty almost unbelievable.
Bangkok, that was ridiculous. And then I have to say this though. I think one of our favorites, I'll speak for you too. One of your favorites, Bridie.
I'm sure it is. Go ahead.
Because it's not just the food, it's the whole experience, right? Was the end of the walking safari in Botswana.
Yes. That was very special.
So on our Botswana trip, we're doing, and we're very mindful of making sure there's a couple different kinds of safaris. So there's some driving safaris, a couple of those. There's also on the Delta in Botswana, the Okavango Delta, we're doing a boat safari. And we're also doing a walking safari. And so we were doing a walking safari in Botswana, and we have some funny stories about that, because I was holding us up, because it was like, as we were leaving that camp and going to the next camp, and we had to catch the little plane. And if we didn't catch that plane, we wouldn't have been able to go to the second camp. But I just was so mesmerized by the anthills that and I was pissing off Seb, because he's like, all right, with the questions about the anthills, but they were amazing. And
termites, very, very interesting. Termites.
God,
like, find out about them. Did you know that ants and termites can grow things? They actually, the leaf shredder ants, tangent, they cultivate. Leaf shredder ants, have you seen leaf shredder ants? They take the leaves back to their nest, not because they want to eat the leaves, no, because they shred up the leaves, and then fungus grows on the leaves, and they eat the fungus.
Shut the front door.
It's true.
I don't believe you.
It's true.
Sorry, did you want to say more?
I was going to say something else, but it's a little bit gross, so maybe I will.
I'm not the only one who's just amazed by termites. And so I didn't know that the guy who was leading the tour of our walking tour, it was pretty cool to be on a walking safari in Botswana. You're in this camp, was like an elephant on the other side of the shrub over there. And he was trying to move us along. And Seb wanted us to move along because he was just bored with the conversation about termites. And so the guy moved us along, and then we realized why they moved us along. They had an entire breakfast set up in the bush, all the food, pancakes, waffles, fruit, cereal, all of it. And the table set up for us, and we had to eat pretty quickly. It was champagne for breakfast, and it was amazing. That might be one of my most memorable meals.
Yeah, agreed. I've forgotten about that one for a moment.
I did find something that I thought you might appreciate. I'll just show you this really quickly. That.
Oh, that's our first meeting, everyone. That's my little brother.
There's Jack. So David's taking the picture, I'd assume. There's Seb. There's me and Brady. And this was our first date together. In
Berkeley.
In Berkeley.
Yeah.
It's a little washed out there.
Total fangirling there.
Well, anyway, it was adorable. So when we had technical difficulties, that's what I found while you were gone.
Oh.
So a question about the animal sanctuaries and the animal protection organizations we visit. One of the questions someone had was, how do you know they're legitimate? How do you pick the animal sanctuaries? It really depends on the place, doesn't it? Do you want to say anything about some of the places, and also some of the finds, some of the ones that have been really exciting? Because some of the places are obvious. If we're going to Rwanda, we're going to see the gorillas. We're going to see the little golden monkeys. We're going to Botswana. Obviously, we're going on a safari. But you go to Thailand, and we went to obviously the sanctuaries for elephants, but in the other places, especially in Europe, we've been to, we've really stumbled upon some real gems.
Yeah, so I'm thinking about the Bear and Wolf Park, which is just across the border. It's not actually in France. It's just over the border in the Black Forest, and we didn't know about this place at all. And this is what we usually try to do when we're talking about planning trips. Is we try to reach out to the local vegan community in the area, and we usually find someone who's happy to help us out or give us some tips. And one of the Strasbourg vegans that helped us out and said, I've never been to this place, but I think it's pretty good. And this sounded so cool, like this sanctuary for wolves and bears and lynxes. But, it called itself the Bear and Wolf Park. So we didn't feel completely okay with it. So, of course, we went to go and check it out. And Seb went there and checked it out. And he did the guided tour. And he felt very, very confident that it was doing really good work, that this was not a zoo. These were people that really had the animals' best interests at heart and were trying to help these animals that desperately needed a new home or a better home, let's say. So it's usually involves like talking with the community there and asking around, going to visit, getting somebody to go and visit on our behalf, asking certain questions. And so this is what we do for our trips.
Yeah, and I remember getting those photos and videos from Seb that first time he was there. He was
so excited.
He was so excited, and it was wonderful. So we've been there now. Well, were you there only twice also? Because Seb was there the first time, and then we've been there now on the 2 different Alzat. Well, you've been there because you went. Nice. Yeah, you've been there a few times, and you weren't there. You must have gone there with JL because you must have gone there in a different season. We've only been there in winter.
Yep. It's very nice, but absolutely, we love it there. We love it so much.
We'll put links to all these places because these are nonprofit organizations and they're NGOs, and they're just doing fantastic work. And they're really right in the Black Forest, and they were looking to also acquire some more land to be able to give the animals more space. And these are animals who came from either some kind of pet trade or the circus or zoos, and real awful confinement. And to watch, as we've all seen, any animal who's been in any kind of confinement exploitation, to be in a forest, to be able to roam and to watch the bears and wolves together. I mean, it's just amazing.
Yeah, it really is. It's a special place.
So what else? I mean, and then finding the elephant sanctuary in France. We haven't gone there yet, and they're still building it. But
we've been there. We've gone there on the Scout.
You did go, right? But we haven't done the trip yet. But yeah, you were there on the Scout, and that looks like a really amazing couple.
Yes, they're actually former zookeepers, interestingly, the couple that run it. I'm not quite sure at the current status as to whether they have received elephant yet. Maybe coronavirus has been a challenge, as you can imagine, setting up a sanctuary in the French countryside with a lot of red tape. You have to be able to really prove that you're doing a good job, as it should be, but certainly they desperately want to help these animals. And there's currently no sanctuary in Europe for elephants that need a new home. So this place is going to be the place for them. So the sheds are up, the fences, of course you must have fences, the fences are all up. There is a list of elephants ready to move in when the time is right. So hopefully that will happen before we go there.
To think about that, because I mean, in the United States, we have so many sanctuaries for elephants. We have the one in Tennessee, we have one in California, Paws. We have several elephant sanctuaries for retired elephants, and especially with the Ringland closing and having needing a home for elephants permanently. Yeah. And so vetting, visiting places, asking questions, looking with our own eyes. These are, we take all this very seriously, and our travelers trust us, and we take that very seriously. Right. So we've got some great ones coming up. We have also, we sit around, the 4 of us, and talk about the places we want to go. Bridie, you mentioned Iceland. Japan is a place that has been on my list.
Yes. Yeah. A lot of people interested in Japan as well. You're in good company there, I think, Colleen.
I'm not surprised. And I think a lot of these places, it's not just, wow, I want to go to Japan. It's, I want to go to Japan, which is also a challenge in terms of language. It's a challenge in terms of food. Challenge, when I say challenge, I mean a good challenge. It's less familiar than what's in your backyard. And I want to make sure that I'm clear too. We've had many trips where non-vegan partners come and everyone feels so welcomed and so loved, or at least it's what we've been told. And that's what we try to make sure of. So these are places that, partners come with their spouses, because, if they went just the 2 of them, it would be harder for the 2 of them who maybe eat differently. And the other one wants to, I'm just going to eat fish or whatever. And our trips, obviously, you don't have to be vegan, but you're going to eat vegan the whole time, unless you want to go off and be by yourself and go to a burger joint. We can't stop you, but we are thrilled that everyone loves the food, and we make sure that the food is phenomenal. And Japan is one of those places where I'm going to say Seb is wrong to not like Japanese food. And he's picky about Japanese food the way I was about Vietnamese food, but I now love it. And so maybe he needs to go, well, he's been to Japan, but I don't know.
For 2 years. So I think it's really not his taste, but I think he will enjoy taking people around for sure.
Sacrifice for all of us. So these are the kinds of things that we're thinking of. Lots of trips to Italy. We're looking at more places in Africa. We're looking at Cambodia, which I'm super excited about. Vietnam, I think, was for us. As far as the CPG trips, the biggest surprise, because we just, and it was the lowest number of people who signed up, and we still don't know why. And for us, it was the most magical, because it was such a surprise. I think we just didn't expect what we found. And it was in the northern part of Vietnam. So we're talking about doing a southern Vietnam, right? In Cambodia.
Yeah, we did northern to center in the first trip. So if we could do like center and then the southern part of Vietnam and then into Cambodia, that's quite a common little stretch that people do. It's very doable in 10 days or so.
Yeah, it'd be incredible. That would be absolutely incredible. And then we're also talking about some North American trips as well. We're seeing what we can do. Cost efficient for everybody. I also have to say one of my favorite trips is one that I want to do again. We miss you guys so much, but man, I think one of my favorite trips was our trek in Scotland, trekking 100 miles, from where we started. We started in Glasgow, went up to Fort William, and that was absolutely incredible. Probably the least interesting food in Scotland than any trip we've been on, but we made that work as well and have some great memories. One of the mishaps there was not a mishap, but we were about to go on a 100-mile trek, and I think it was the first half mile of the trip. My foot hurt. I was like, I have a problem with my shoe. And we're like, we're just starting a 100-mile walk. Figure it out, lady. And I did. It was fine. I did become very comfortable.
Being uncomfortable?
I became adept at learning from Brady. You were my mentor in needing to take care of things when there's no bathrooms around, because you're in the wilderness.
I was like, where's she going with this?
What did I teach her? Brady is adept at peeing outside.
Really good at it.
And I learned.
Doesn't faze me in the slightest.
It does not at all. Not at all. We have stories we could tell. We're not going to tell them. And I drink a lot of tea, and there were some days we were, you're hiking for 15 miles, 20 miles, 10 miles, and you start in the morning and there aren't bathrooms around. I think he didn't go to the bathroom the entire 100 miles. I did, but I was very proud of myself, and I've been going outside ever since. In my backyard, down the street, on the sidewalk. It's just been fantastic. So I think that covers everything. Oh yeah, there was one more mishap, but I would be throwing Seb under the bus if I brought up Salzburg, or if I brought up.
I think you can mention it.
Yeah.
It was an accident.
Not that kind of accident. It wasn't that kind of accident. It was a different kind of accident. We have so many memories with these. I can't even tell you guys how much we laugh with these two. When I say we, I mean David and I. We have spent so many holidays together, Christmas holidays together, New Year's together in so many different countries. And I just miss you so much. It's crazy. I think we've never gone 6 months without seeing each other in a different country over the last 5-6 years. And to be this close now and not be able to see you is just, I know, it's just torture. I can't reach you. It's been torture. And so one of the great trips we had was in Germany at Christmas time. It was prior to we did a river cruise up the Danube in Austria. But before that, we spent the week, the four of us, in a little house, a little Airbnb in the southern part of Germany,
Bavaria,
and had such a fantastic time. And it was Christmas Day, I believe. We were quite excited. I was David and I. We were very excited to go to Salzburg and see Mozart's house. And And one of the questions was, have you guys ever fought on the trip? I didn't ask that before because, we don't want to air our dirty laundry, but let's just say of the four of us, the two who are the most opinionated are me and Seb. And so we were in the car.
I'd say that's accurate.
I think it's very, David and Bridie, very laid back. Seb and I are we have opinions, and, and we're like brother and sister. I mean, it's all good all the time, but, I sometimes drive him crazy. He's driven me crazy. And we learn each time. But we were in the car. Seb was driving in a rental car to drive from Bavaria in Germany to Salzburg in Austria. And he was backing out of the driveway. And he was backing out, and I could see I was behind him in the back seat, and he was backing up very quickly. I don't want to say this because I'm sounding like I'm blaming him, and I am. So he was backing out very quickly, and the tire was running against the curb. And I was like, Seb, you're hitting the curb. And he was like, nah! And I was like, you're hitting the curb. And he's like, nah! And all of a sudden, hit the curb, and the tire went flat. And it was on Christmas Day in Germany. It's pretty Christmassy. It takes it very seriously.
It was a little bit disappointing, but yeah. And
we didn't go to Salzburg ever, but we had a lovely Christmas day. Yet. Yeah, it was, but those are the things you remember. I think almost more than wasn't that day great? Nothing went wrong and everything was swell. I mean, you remember the mishaps, you remember the things that you remember the sicknesses and the falls and the mistake. How come we've talked about everybody else's mishaps except for yours, Bridie? Have you not had one story we can tell?
Oh my gosh, I must have.
Come on.
Maybe I don't put myself out there as much as as other people. Gosh, there must be some.
I can't think of one thing you've ever done wrong, Bridie.
I have a tendency to spoil New Year's.
She does spoil New Year's. You do that wrong every year. Whenever we get so excited, we're going to spend New Year's together. Big deal, right? And I have very high expectations. That's part of the problem. Don't have expectations with Bridie around New Year's, because Bridie, like at 9:00, she starts getting sleepy. And I'm like, we were going to play games. We were going to sing songs. What is happening? And I'm thinking of 3 New Year's in particular, actually 4. There was the one on the boat in Austria, went to sleep. There was in Germany, it was Christmas Eve.
Yep, that's
went
right.
To sleep, right? There was New Year's Eve in Botswana. Granted, I was sick. I had been so sick I didn't go on one of the safaris because I had a terrible flu, and I still stayed up till midnight. Bridie went to bed.
Let's just say that early nights are a really big priority to me. And that means that I'm not awful the next day. Maybe that's why I never have any mishaps, because I'm always on the ball all day. Maybe because I'm well rested.
Oh God.
I have no idea.
No, it's true. She does. And I will say one of my favorite things, and we'll close with this, and I can even close with this in our video, is one of my favorite things Bridie and I end every trip with, right, Bridie?
Mm-hmm.
Is a dance. I think we started that, or when I say we, it's me. I started that because I dragged you onto the dance floor in Italy.
Mm-hmm. I remember.
There was that little child on the dance floor with us. There was a child who was incorrigible. And there was an accordion player in this little pizza restaurant. It was just all of us and some family of who owned the pizza place, and we were dancing. And that started every trip. Now ends with a dance. And we've got footage in Paris dancing just
outside Le Louvre with the sparkly Eiffel Tower and yeah,
on the boat in Thailand.
Mm-hmm. Where did we dance in Vietnam? We must have danced. I remember. In Hoi An, final dinner in that beautiful big open space by the water.
Heaven, wasn't it?
Yeah.
No, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't heaven. I can't remember. Olac.
Oh, so beautiful. Yes. So if you join us, you can dance with Bridie and I, but we just wanted to share those questions. Thanks for everything, or the answers questions. Thanks everybody for submitting your questions, and we can always answer more. I think we've covered everything and then some. And it was just an excuse also to just get together with you and talk to you and share these wonderful memories. And I look forward to sharing many more with you, and it will happen.
Right,
it will be so.
It will. It will. We just have to be patient, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure. All right. Thank you so much, Bridie, for joining us. I'll make sure everybody has links to the website and to everything we've talked about. Thank you so much.
Sure things. Thanks so much. And thanks for watching, everyone.